The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good evening. Thank you all for joining us this evening and making time for this important discussion, Back from the Brink, Organizing Locally to Prevent Nuclear War. I'm delighted to report that we have over 300 people registered for tonight's webinar. And here you can see a map showing all of the webinar registrations from folks throughout the country. I also wanted to thank you for your dedication and advocacy at this sort of all hands-on moment when the risks of nuclear catastrophe are all too real and growing. And today your voice and activism and those of others is sorely needed. My name is Sean Meyer. I'm the manager of strategic campaigns for the Global Security Program of the Union of Concerned Scientists. I have worked as an organizer on this issue for most of my professional life, and I am truly excited and energized about Back from the Brink as a way for so many folks around the country to get involved and build support for the policies laid out in the call to prevent nuclear war. I'm going to start by introducing my colleagues who are here with us this evening. And after I give a quick overview and describe the format of what we hope to accomplish this evening, I'm going to turn it over to my UCS colleague, Madison Arnold-Skirbo, who's going to tee up the first of 3 quick surveys we hope you will take part in over the next hour. We're then going to hear from Dr. Peter Wilk. Peter is a member of the Board of Directors of Physicians for Social Responsibility, and he's part of the leadership of PSR's main chapter. Peter is going to take a few minutes to share some history and background about Back from the Brink, as well as bring folks up to speed on where things stand today and share some of our milestones and successes. We're then going to turn things over to Dr. Gwen Dubois, a longtime leader of PSR's Chesapeake chapter, which played a major role in getting the city of Baltimore to endorse Back from the Brink, the first major U.S. city to do so. Gwen's going to take a few minutes to talk about that and share that story and some of their lessons learned. We'll then hear from Dr. Sandra Yarney with the New Hampshire-based group Seacoast Peace Response, which has been very successful in getting a number of New Hampshire cities and towns to pass Back from the Brink resolutions. Sandra's story and perspective are particularly useful for folks this evening who live in smaller cities or rural communities. You'll then hear from Denise Duffield, the Associate Director of PSR's Los Angeles chapter, and Denise is now playing a major role in moving this effort forward, and she's going to describe some of the tools we have available to help you all get involved, as well as talk about some of the exciting developments, including an updated website and an interactive map we're working on. I also wanted to take a moment to introduce Alex Gisette with PSR LA. Madison, who I mentioned earlier, Alex will be sort of helping behind the scenes today, and will be helping with the Q&A section and responding to questions and inquiries. At the end of the hour, our hope is that folks have a better sense of how to get involved, what tools and resources are available, and importantly, how you can connect up with others in your community and get support from the Back from the Brink team. So each of our speakers will give roughly 5 to 7 minute presentations, after which we'll have plenty of time for discussions and questions. And importantly, the questions and discussion will occur via the chat function. If you look at your screen, you can see the question window, which allows you to start communicating with us immediately. So you can start using that now. So if you have questions for us or want to raise your hand and tell us about yourself or your interests or your community, Alex or Madison will try to respond one-on-one via the chat function as the webinar is going on. So again, you don't have to wait to put your questions into the queue before we get to the Q&A. So once the presentations are finished, we will highlight questions, share them out loud with the group, and do our very best to answer as many of them as possible in the hour that we have this evening. We'll have a slide at the end, which will have our main Back from the Brink email address. You can all be in touch with us after this evening. And we'll wrap up with some information about follow-up communications and next steps. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Madison. Thank you.
Thanks, Sean. As Sean mentioned, my name is Madison Arnold-Skirbo, and I am an outreach associate at the Union of Concerned Scientists. And my role today is to provide some interactive opportunities during this webinar for you to make your voice heard about nuclear weapons. So to start it off, we are going to have a question to encourage you to think about what brought you to this webinar this evening. So I'm going to launch the poll, which you should see on your screen now. It'll be up here for a little bit, so please give a look at this poll and respond with the answer that resonates the most with you. So this first one is, what motivated you to join this webinar today? And our options are because of faith, a belief in the moral imperative to preserve life, because of health, an understanding of the health risks of nuclear weapons, the environment, that nuclear weapon production and its use is polluting our Earth, because of family, you're being concerned about your loved ones, or because of our current president and thinking that his administration could potentially be making nuclear war more likely. So please, thank you to all of you that have voted. Please vote and choose which one resonates the most with you. There's not a right or wrong answer. We're just trying to gauge how folks feel about sort of what brought you here today. So I'll keep it open for another 10 to 15 seconds. So please respond just by clicking the one that resonates with you. It's okay if it's more than one, but choose the one that you feel most called to today. And then I will be able to share the results live here in a few seconds. So they're still coming in. I'm going to give it another 10 seconds here. All right, I'm going to close the poll now. Thank you to everyone who voted, and I will share the results. So hopefully you can see, this is great. There's a lot of folks here from with a bunch of different motivations for joining, and it's really exciting, and we'll learn a lot more about how these different motivations are involved in the nuclear weapons policy. So thank you very much, and now I'm going to turn it over to Peter.
Peter, you may need to unmute yourself.
Sorry. Hello, everyone. Thanks, Madison, and thanks, Sean, for reminding me I needed to unmute myself. Hello, everyone. It's so important that so many of you are on this call with us today, given the events over the past 2 years that have heightened our concerns, which include U.S. withdrawal from the Iranian nuclear deal, resulting in increasingly confrontational actions by both the U.S. and Iran. The U.S. and Russia walking away from the 1987 Intermediate Nuclear Forces Treaty. No real progress in dealing with North Korea's nuclear program. An increasingly tense standoff between nuclear-armed India and Pakistan over the status of Kashmir, and U.S. plans to develop provocative new, low-yield, more usable warheads and nuclear-armed sea-launched cruise missiles. When President Trump took office in 2017, we didn't yet know all of that, but we did anticipate that his actions would increase nuclear dangers. Conversations at that time between the Union of Concerned Scientists and Physicians for Social Responsibility led to the creation of this Back from the Brink initiative. We felt there was a desperate need for fundamental change in U.S. nuclear policy. We needed a vehicle to mobilize people, something more than just another petition for people to sign. We needed something more comprehensive, something more inspirational and motivational, a way to connect locally and yet with enough people engaged to actually have impact nationally. And we wanted something that could be owned by everyone, not by one particular group or individual. The final text of the 5-point policy platform that is the core of the Back from the Brink program, the call to prevent nuclear war, was agreed upon in late 2017 after the Nobel Peace Prize was awarded to the International Campaign to Abolish Nuclear Weapons, or ICAN, for its role in advocating for adoption of the Treaty on Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons. The first 4 policy points are interim steps to lower nuclear danger that most anti-nuclear activists agree are essential. We are calling on the United States to do the following: renounce the option of using nuclear weapons first, end the sole unchecked authority of any president to launch a nuclear attack, take U.S. nuclear weapons off hair trigger alert, and cancel a plan to replace its entire arsenal with enhanced weapons. The language of the 5th policy point was crafted carefully to make our ultimate goal clear while creating room for legislators and policymakers to embrace language they felt comfortable with. So it says, actively pursue a verifiable agreement among nuclear-armed states to eliminate their nuclear arsenals. In early 2018, Back from the Brink strategy was developed by representatives from UCS and PSR, along with Soka Gakkai International USA, the United Church of Christ, and the Nuclear Age Peace Foundation. Since then, we're very excited to share that Back from the Brink has been successfully engaging health professionals, the faith community, environmentalists, academics, policymakers, and peace and social justice advocates across the country. If you don't see your logo here, we have a lot. We have, at this point, secured 73 national organizational endorsements and 208 state and local organizational endorsements. So we couldn't fit them all on the slide. Most recently, they do include the Sierra Club that we're especially pleased with. Some are drawn to one particular component of what Back from the Brink is calling for, depending on what's in the news and what their greatest concerns are. Others are drawn to Back from the Brink's comprehensive approach, with its roadmap of clear steps to be taken. Many are drawn to a campaign which invites them to engage locally in meaningful action to help prevent nuclear war, to add their voice and to engage others in their communities, to bring new constituencies to this issue, to build political power, and ultimately to influence decision makers. So what are Back from the Brink advocates actually doing on a day-to-day basis? What are we asking you all to think about doing? The strategy we're following is to secure a growing number of national and local endorsements of Back from the Brink's 5-point policy platform. With those local endorsements in hand, Back from the Brink advocates are going to city councils and state legislatures, getting Back from the Brink resolutions introduced and adopted. Through this process, we're able to provide much needed education to the public and to elected officials about the dangers posed by nuclear weapons, and to engage them in advocacy for effective policy solutions. We need to powerfully demonstrate to representatives and senators and presidential candidates that we need fundamental changes in U.S. nuclear policy. Members of Congress are more likely to take action when they realize that an issue is important to a large number of their constituents. Most Back from the Brink resolutions contain language indicating that the municipality that adopted it will send a copy of their resolution to their congressional delegation and to the president. Advocates are also able to use Back from the Brink endorsements and resolutions to demonstrate directly to their representatives in Congress that organizations, towns, and cities in their district want to see action on our 5-point policy platform. So far, we've secured adoption of 35 municipal resolutions in large cities and small towns across the country. 6 state legislative bodies have also adopted Back from the Brink resolutions. To have more impact, we know that we need to engage more people in this work. To that end, we've organized this national webinar, and we very much appreciate your participation in it. I'm now turning things over to Gwen Du Bois and Sandra Yarney, who will share 2 case studies of a large and a small community where Back from the Brink advocacy has led to adoption of municipal resolutions. Gwen, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Peter. Well, after a Physicians for Social Responsibility workshop in Baltimore on nuclear war prevention, some of us formed a group called Prevent Nuclear War Maryland in the fall of 2017. In the spring, we decided to work on a Back from the Brink resolution for Baltimore. We approached a senior councilwoman who had been instrumental in Baltimore becoming a nuclear-free zone in 1992, unfortunately later repealed in 2000. We presented the idea of Back from the Brink and of divestment from nuclear weapons and firearms, all in the same meeting with her. She was overwhelmed. She was on the verge of retiring and was not in a place mentally to undertake a new effort. We then approached another council person, Bill Henry. This was a great choice. He had been a member of Students for Social Responsibility in his college days and needed no education on the existential threat of nuclear war. He agreed to be our sponsor. On June 1st, we presented him with a draft of a resolution which we found on Back from the Brink website, preventnuclearwar.org. We tweaked it a little for Baltimore. The resolved included the 5 points of Back from the Brink, as well as that a copy of the resolution be sent to our mayor and to the Maryland delegation to the United States Congress. Henry liked it and sent it on to the legal department. He reminded us that council met at City Hall every Monday at 5 p.m., a good day to find council people in their offices and try to get their endorsements. We were informed that after August 6th there would be a summer recess, so we knew we had to get our endorsements stacked up before then. Mr. Henry advised us which of the 14 other council people were likely to co-sponsor and should be visited first. Once we got enough co-sponsors, the more reluctant members might come on board. Though he would help us, we realized that lobbying was our work. Once the legal department okayed the language, we were ready to go. We tried to find constituents from as many districts as we could who were willing to go and accompany us to their councilperson to seek support for a Back from the Brink resolution. If it passed unanimously, we were done. If it passed with opposition, there would be a hearing on the resolution, after which another vote would occur. Some lessons so far. Pick the most enthusiastic person you can to be your sponsor. Use a template resolution on the preventnuclearwar.org site to get you started. Keep it simple. Be prepared to lobby every council person, starting with the most likely supporters first. Find constituents where possible for each council person. This will be easier if you start with a coalition of groups, but sometimes, if not, then finding a progressive person you know from other districts who are interested will work as well. And in considering a strategy, decide whether passing the bill unanimously is a goal or whether a hearing with its additional educational value is a higher goal. We sent emails to each council person with the draft resolution and requested a meeting. A couple didn't seem to embrace why they should address this in a city like Baltimore, with so many serious problems around racism, violence, poverty. One young councilwoman who brought her toddler to meetings I thought would really get the threat to children, but still did not seem enthusiastic. Though I share gender and motherhood with this person, I am of a different race and generation, which may have reduced my credibility. Bill Henry did do additional lobbying with her and a couple other council people who needed an extra push. My own council person is very conservative, but I had met with him enough that he knows me and agreed to vote for the resolution but not sponsor it, and that was good enough for us. Finally, one council person liked the information we presented that Baltimore was spending over $100 million yearly in taxes for the nuclear weapons complex. He urged us to add that to the resolution, which we did. Some more lessons. Add locally relevant clauses to your Back from the Brink resolution. It is crazy that a city like Baltimore sends $100 million yearly to support the nuclear weapons complex. And find allies who have credibility with the more reluctant council people. And some of those allies may be other co-sponsors, and ask them to put a word in of support for the resolution. Well, despite contacting as many media people as we could, we ended up getting only a reporter from a Japanese communist newspaper. He was especially moved that our resolution was heard and passed unanimously on Hiroshima Day, 2018. The City Council also videos all sessions, so we had that. And one of the members of Prevent Nuclear War Maryland had a contact at the National Catholic Reporter, and they wrote a story on Baltimore being the first major city to pass Back from the Brink resolution. We were excited that it was August 6th, that the resolution passed unanimously. Incidentally, Tucson was the 34th city when it passed Back from the Brink, August 6th of this year. Because our resolution had an important whereas regarding the UN Prohibition Treaty, the International Campaign to Abolish Nuclear Weapons, or ICAN, included us in their list of cities that support the UN ban treaty. And now when we go to lobby our congresspeople in DC, we make sure before our meeting that they have been sent a copy of the Baltimore Back from the Brink resolution. Some more lessons. Whatever publicity you can get, traditional, social media, website, etc., will amplify the educational value of your resolution. And an important anniversary can add meaning to the passage of a Back from the Brink resolution. And finally, be sure to include in your resolves that a copy of the resolution go to your congresspeople. A postscript. Bill Henry, our sponsor, has announced he will run for Baltimore City Controller. We have a long-standing controller in the city who has done too much for big business and too little for the people. Mr. Henry and I have talked about divesting from firearms and nuclear arms manufacturers, and he will be able to advise us if he wins how to divest while protecting city employee pensioners. Maybe a good resolution in the future. We are also encouraged that Back from the Brink activity has started in the city of Frederick, Maryland, to the west, where Prevent Nuclear War Frederick is a group which supports the Back from the Brink goals and an end to endless wars, and just formed in August. And in three counties, in Prince George's County near DC, their Peace and Justice Committee is working to identify council people who might support a Back from the Brink resolution. In Howard County and Montgomery County, peace action chapters have written draft resolutions for Back from the Brink. Montgomery County already has several council people who have agreed to endorse it. With the help of local members, including of Physicians for Social Responsibility and others, they are lobbying for additional council people support. So please email the webinar organizers if you would like to be in contact with any of our groups here in Maryland. We feel very excited that this is really a growing movement in our state. And now I'd like to turn it over to Sandra Yarney, Seacoast Peace Response.
Thank you, Gwen. In 2017, I learned about Back from the Brink resolution at a presentation by Dr. Ira Helfand of ICAN, the International Campaign to Abolish Nuclear Weapons, and Physicians for Social Responsibility. He was speaking at the University of New Hampshire. I was inspired to have my town and surrounding towns pass the resolution. The time is perfect for this work because President Trump's reckless threats about nuclear weapons have reminded the public of their existence and their existential threat. We can seize this opportunity. The synergy of public concern, the passage at the United Nations of the Treaty to Prohibit Nuclear Weapons, and the intellectual infrastructure provided by the Union of Concerned Scientists and Physicians for Social Responsibility make it possible to change U.S. policy and rid the world of nuclear weapons. I set my personal goal for 2018 of passing the resolution in my town of Durham, New Hampshire. Then I studied the materials on preventnuclearwar.org. Hardest of all is being able to give a brief rundown of the 5 points before people's eyes glaze over. So I suggest practicing, talking about it a lot, and notice people's reaction to your delivery and self-correct. We created a quarter-page handout with the 5 points, a contact number, and the preventnuclearwar.org website. For months, we carried this handout around and discussed it with everyone we met. Next, we got the resolution on the agenda of New Hampshire Peace Action and Seacoast Peace Response agendas. They both passed the resolution. Organizations that endorse the resolution should register with preventnuclearwar.org. Both New Hampshire Peace Action and Seacoast Peace Response committed to working towards passing the resolution in multiple communities. We sponsored a film series in local libraries about the danger of nuclear weapons and introduced the resolution with material from the website. We showed either Command and Control, The Man Who Saved the World, Fail Safe, or to lighten it up, we also showed Dr. Strangelove. And then these films were followed by a panel discussion and a pitch to work for the passage of the resolution. We call the film series Back from the Brink. In Durham, Dr. Ira Helfand returned to speak about the medical consequences of nuclear war. We had a dinner beforehand for Dr. Helfand, the SPR committee, our state representative, and Kitty Marple, the chairperson of our town council. By the end of the lecture, Kitty had committed to introducing the resolution. She asked that we not lobby the council and said she would work on sounding out the rest of the council. She worked with the town manager and the attorney on the form of the resolution, starting with the sample resolution as a model. In retrospect, not talking individually with each council member might have been a mistake, as council members rejected the action of taking missiles off hair trigger alert. If they had had a greater understanding of this issue, they might have passed it. In general, the hair trigger phrase was unpopular with the majority of elected officials in our area. Some towns have used the term prompt launch instead of hair trigger, which is the term actually used by the military. All of our town resolutions added, and be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution be sent to each member of New Hampshire's congressional delegation. It's important to touch base weekly with the council sponsor to make the changes in the whereas section if any council member is uncomfortable with these statements. Rewriting or dropping an unwanted whereas makes the whole process move more smoothly, and it makes it more likely that the resolution will pass. Before the Durham Town Council's vote, there was a period when public comment was welcome. We had at least one person address each of the points of the resolution. During the Durham public comment period, several people who had not been part of our planning process spoke eloquently on behalf of the resolution. We also wrote letters to the editor and ran a small ad in a local paper for 2 months. I spoke at the Portsmouth Women's March about Back from the Brink. Because of New Hampshire's first in the nation primary status, many activists believe that we have a special responsibility to find out how presidential candidates will solve pressing issues. We bird dog them at public events. When we are not recognized in Q&As, we go into the selfie line and ask our question and hand the candidate the yellow quarter pager in order to influence the candidate. We work in pairs so the second person can get audio, get the candidate on record as favoring the abolition of nuclear weapons or whatever comment you might have had. The Union of Concerned Scientists and Physicians for Social Responsibility have put together invaluable materials. They are helpful and easy to use. Our New Hampshire effort has been a combination of one person getting fired up and then being supported and inspired by intersecting groups. Support has come from UCS phone calls and staff, PSR, New Hampshire Peace Action, the Nuclear Weapons Working Group, and the local American Friends Service Committee, as well as faith groups. The work has been amazingly pleasant and productive. In total, 2 cities and 3 towns have passed the resolution in the Seacoast area alone. As Dover Councilman Dennis Shanahan said of this powerful resolution, quote, "This resolution gives us the ability to deliver our message to congressionals, and I believe it gives us an ability to deliver a message to these people who are going to be marching through our state over the next 4 or 5 months as primary season kicks into high gear, that there's an opinion that this board has, and we share this opinion with a variety of cities and towns, Durham, Portsmouth, Exeter, Warren. It is really a wide variation in cities and towns that have taken this on," end quote. We are still working to bring in more communities. The call is compelling. We did it in our hometown. You can do this too, and I hope you will. Together, we just might save the world. And now Madison will rejoin us with another poll for you. Madison?
Hello, thank you. It's Madison again. Time for the next interactive portion. So wake up everyone, get ready to click some answers. So now that you've heard 2 amazing case studies of folks who organize locally in their own communities on nuclear weapons, it's time for you to think again about yourself and your role in this. So I'm going to put the next question up here on the screen. I'm going to launch it now. And as you can see, this one is asking about how much help that you think you will need in order to get started doing this organizing. And we have 3 options. Again, there's no right or wrong answer, so please just answer as you feel led, as it seems relevant to you. So the 3 options are: you would need a lot of help. You're feeling new to activism and think you need some serious guidance. Or maybe you need a little bit of help. You have some ideas and experience, but you could use some pointers. Or you don't think you need much help. You're ready to hit the ground running. So please choose the response that feels most accurate for you. Again, no right or wrong answer. Either way, we're just trying to learn a little bit more about who's on this call and how UCS and PSR and the other organizations involved with Back from the Brink can be of assistance. So I'm going to keep this poll open for another 10 seconds or so. The results are coming in, and I see them, and I will be launching them in a moment for you to see them. So keep them coming. Thank you to everyone who's responded. All right, they're still coming in. I'm going to give you all a little more time. All right, 5 more seconds. You can tell my seconds are arbitrary. All right, I'm going to close the poll right now, and I will share the results, which is really exciting. Again, we have a combination of folks with different responses and in different stages of this process, which is exciting because our next speaker, I think, will address a lot of this help that we all need to get started. So without further ado, I'm going to hide this poll again and pass it on to Denise.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm going to go over some tips from our organizing guide, which you can also find and download from our website. And I'll have a slide shortly to show you exactly where on the website you can find that. Next slide. What you're looking at now is an image from the Los Angeles City Council meeting just seconds after the city voted to adopt a Back from the Brink resolution in August of 2018. And you can see us in the back there jumping to our feet with joy. It was an amazing moment and one that has dramatically impacted our organization's nuclear abolition work. So the first thing you want to do in your process is to determine which elected official or municipal legislative body, such as a town or a city council or a county board, that you want to engage. Familiarize yourself with the terminology and process for that municipality's statements of support. Many refer to these statements as resolutions, and here's a photo from the very first Back from the Brink resolution that was ever passed in the U.S., which was in Northampton, Massachusetts in December 2017. In some areas, the entire town gets to vote, as you can see from the screenshot from a town meeting in Needham, Massachusetts. For this town, a resolution can be introduced by residents if they get enough other people in the town to first sign a petition and vote in support of it. Some cities might not do resolutions, but would incorporate Back from the Brink's policy points in their legislative platform, and that's what happened in Santa Barbara, California. Here you can see Rick Wayman of the Nuclear Age Peace Foundation providing testimony. In Oregon, statements of support are referred to as memorials. And here you can see a committee hearing with testimony from PSR Oregon's Kelly Campbell and members of the Marshallese community whose homeland has been so grievously impacted by U.S. nuclear weapons tests. And then some municipalities simply want to provide a statement of support. In Santa Monica, California, the council voted unanimously to support Back from the Brink, but instead of a traditional resolution, they provided us with a letter indicating their support. So as Gwen and Sandra mentioned, you can find a sample resolution on our website that you can customize to make more relevant for your town or city. You want to make sure to include our 5 policy points and that the municipality will send the resolution to your area's congressional delegation. And so you can see here where exactly it is on the website and what the sample resolution looks like. Now, towns and cities that include a call for the U.S. to embrace the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons in their resolution will be included in ICANN Cities Appeal. And this is a movement to gain support for the treaty from cities throughout the world, and it was inspired by Back from the Brink. Washington, D.C. is one city that did just that, and here you can see D.C. Councilmember David Gross with Danny Hall from Soka Gakkai and ICANN's Beatrice Finn. What's really important and helpful for your endeavor will be working with allies or building a coalition. It can be critical to your success, and this is a photo of our coalition here in LA, which included members of the American Society of Hiroshima and Nagasaki A-bomb survivors, who also received a commendation from the city on that day. Now, in terms of finding allies, you're going to want to identify and reach out to your partners and seek their involvement and their ideas before you approach any elected officials. You can ask local organizations to endorse Back from the Brink. In addition to advocacy groups, consider asking schools, churches, professional boards or societies, or civic groups. You can also review the list of organizations who've endorsed Back from the Brink on our website. Some, like PSR, UCS, Peace Action, Veterans for Peace, may have a local chapter near you. And I have to say the faith community has expressed strong support for the Back from the Brink in every denomination, and that would be a very good place to reach out to as well in your area. You can also contact us at info@preventnuclearwar.org, and we can help connect you to others in your area. This map right now indicates all of the groups who've endorsed Back from the Brink, cities where resolutions have been adopted, and cities where resolutions are in process, and that is now also on our website's Advocacy Tools page. Every legislative body has different rules for how they operate, which you can research online or call appropriate staff members, such as city clerks or staff for your representative. In most cases, you'll need a representative to sponsor or to introduce the resolution. If you have a relationship with someone on the legislative body, ask that person for advice. You can also ask your local partners if they have helpful relationships or recommendations. And be persistent. Don't assume that a lack of response indicates an unwillingness to consider a resolution. It may simply be that the person to whom you've reached out to is very busy. And I'd like to call attention to that is PSR's own Kathy Altman there at the Tucson City Council meeting, which just approved a resolution in August. You will also, when you do get a sponsor, that person will have invaluable advice on how to proceed, which both Gwen and Sandra mentioned. And when your resolution is introduced, you'll want to make sure to marshal support by asking residents and partners to submit letters, make calls, and to testify at meetings where the resolution will be up for a vote. Learn the rules for public testimony, such as when the testimony is heard, how community members sign up to speak, and how much time each person is allotted for public testimony. Now, in terms of common objections, here's some of the common ones that city council members have had to Back from the Brink resolutions. And these include whether or not a municipality should weigh in on nuclear weapons, the value of a resolution, or that they're not experts. And it's been really inspiring to see the strong responses by other council members who often point out that the resolution will be sent to Congress, that their job is to represent and amplify their constituents' concerns, that other cities are taking this on, and that there's power in numbers, and that credible groups have provided them with more than enough information to make a decision. Some council members have pointed out that cities often lead on issues before the state or federal government does, especially on environmental issues. And as Sean mentioned, we're in the process of redesigning our website to make it more user-friendly, and as part of that, we'll be sharing videos of these powerful statements. And here's just one example from Dover, where Deborah Thibodeau said, "I think we can walk and chew gum at the same time. I agree that we're a fiduciary body and that we're supposed to be taking care of the city, but there won't be a city to take care of if we don't find a way to make the state, the federal government, listen to the citizens." Now, the next thing we hope you'll do in your process is to let us know when your resolution has been introduced and its progress along the way, so we can help support you and amplify your success. I'm sorry for the background noise here. I'm in downtown Los Angeles as we speak. We have lots of alarms going off. Please take photos during and after relevant meetings, post them on social media, and send them to us so we can share them too. Write a press release or a summary of your experience and send that to local media and to us to share as well. Finally, remember to thank the elected officials who championed your resolution and the legislative body that adopted it. I really love this photo of the community and city council members in Salt Lake City. It was taken during the meeting right after the vote. They just got up and took a photo together, and then they went back to business. Once you've had time to celebrate and rest, consider approaching another town or city or visiting with your congressional representatives to let them know about the organizations and cities in their district that support Back from the Brink's 5-point policy platform. 2 of those policies, renouncing first use, which is HR 921 and S 272, and restricting presidential authority, which is HR 669 and S 200, are currently in legislation before Congress, and all 5 of our policy points are included in House Resolution 302. And this is a photo from a recent meeting with Adam Schiff, where we did talk about support from Back from the Brink, and he did decide to co-sponsor HR 921. Again, all of the information I presented and more is on the organizing guide on our website, and please don't hesitate to contact us. We're happy to help you in any way that we can. And I will now turn it back to Madison for our 3rd and final poll before the Q&A.
Thanks, Denise. All right, it's time for the final poll, final chance to interact in this poll-like way anyway. So now that you've heard some stories, anecdotes, and the experiences with resolutions, and you've learned about all the tools available, now again, it's time to reflect on yourself and think about what is your next step. Again, just like the previous ones, there's no right or wrong answer. You should see the poll responses on the screen. Please choose the one that fits you the most, and I'll read them aloud. Is your next step to learn more about nuclear weapons or organizing? Is it to talk to your friends and family to help spread the word about nuclear weapons issues? Is it to talk to local organizations and try to get them to endorse? Or maybe to talk to your city and town officials and try to encourage them to pass a resolution? Or is it time to talk to your state officials and encourage them to pass a resolution? Again, no right or wrong answer. I'm going to keep the poll open for a short amount of time, and then I'm going to give you the results. So again, please choose the one that you think could be your next step. All right, they're still coming in. I'm going to give you a little bit more time. Remember, think about, for you and your experience right now, there's no right or wrong answer. Just think about what you might do with the things that you've learned from this presentation. Gonna give it a few more seconds here. The last second votes. All right, and now I'm going to close the poll. All right, and yet again, we've got a variety of responses. It's exciting to learn that there's folks that are at all different stages. And again, no right or wrong answer. We're excited for everyone who's here tonight and thinking about your next step. All right, and now I would like to pass it along to Alex for the question and answer portion.
All right, thank you, Madison. Good evening, everyone. My name is Alex Jassett, and I'm the Nuclear Threats Associate at Physicians for Social Responsibility here in LA, and I'll be moderating the Q&A portion of the webinar this evening. If you haven't had a chance to ask your question yet, please do so now via the question function on your browser app. We have gotten a lot of really good questions so far, and I will do my best to get as many of them answered as possible. But we'll also be answering questions via the chat function, as well as following up with people via email if we don't get to answer your questions live. So don't hesitate to ask the question, and we'll do our best to get back to you as soon as we can. So with that, let's just dive into our first question, which came in from Louise. And we've had a few questions that were phrased similar to this. So the question is, given all the issues that people are facing these days, how best to get them to add the threat of nuclear war to their list? So I don't know who wants to take that. Maybe Denise?
I'll do it.
Oh, Denise? Yeah.
And then I think Sandra has something important to say,
okay,
too. So what I love so much about Back from the Brink is that it's very specific, and it allows us to be proactive. We particularly the effort for municipal resolutions. What we're doing is we're instead of having events and having sort of the same small group of people who care about these issues come to the events, instead of having petitions, we can go out, we can be proactive, and we can place this issue before elected officials. And once it's been introduced, they have to take time from their day to think about nuclear weapons, and they have to make a decision on where they stand. So it's a very surgical approach that doesn't really rely on people making this the number one issue in their lives. There's so much going on, and I'm so glad that other activists are taking on the issues that they are. But what Back from the Brink allows us to do is to be really proactive and to take this issue in front of legislative bodies where they will have to make a decision, and then that goes on to Congress members. So I think that it's also important to stay in touch with your elected officials afterwards, because they may get more involved. After you have a resolutions passed, invite the sponsor to come to your events. You may have people who will join us and sort of elevate this in a list of their concerns. But the approach that we're doing is pretty surgical and allows us to go to people and put this issue before them, and they make a decision on it, and then we carry that forward versus relying on, filling the streets with people on this issue. It's Congress we need to move. And when Congress hears from their constituents and community leaders, as evidenced by the amount of organizations in their district and the amount of resolutions passed in cities and towns in their district, I think they're going to be more likely to take action.
So you want me to say a little bit? I don't have too much more to add to what Denise has said, except if you are already working with peace organizations, this is such a wonderful opportunity because of what has been put together by the Back to the Brink thought process. And we're 2 minutes to midnight. It's getting worse and worse. And the proliferation that's taking place is really frightening. And it's hard to inspire people when you're frightening them. But this is something that we can really do something about because there is a whole group of people working on this. And as I said, the synergy of what the fear that is being generated by Trump and his provocativeness, I think it's really something that can help people. But we can't look at it as being this is about Trump, because it's not about Trump. These things have been going on for years. So I think it's just saying, yes, all of these other issues are important, but if the world is changed forever in 12 hours, what do all those other things even matter? So that's one of the things that I would say about it.
Alex, this is Sean. If I could just sort of follow up on what Sandra just said a little bit. I mean, I think there's, we just saw last Friday, a youth-led climate strike. I think, they're estimating some 4 million people were out on the streets, and there's, that issue, that existential threat, has really come to the forefront. And I think we at UCS are really finding traction. Again, I think Sandra's right that we can't sort of scare people. We have to talk about this in ways that don't, have people cower. But young people in particular understand that their future is at risk, and I think that we're seeing some success in sort of linking these two existential threats. So that's one answer I might have to that question of how we sort of take this issue, nuclear weapons, and tie it to other things where there is a significant amount of energy today, and that's climate change.
This is Gwen. 2 quick things. Number one of our members, Prevent Nuclear War Maryland, goes out to all, like the Sunrise Movement demonstrations, and he gives out a quarter-page little flyer on the 5 points of Back from the Brink, and also the amount of money we're spending that could go to a Green New Deal. So he's just been wonderful at making the links between the groups, and we can all do that. The other thing is, in your newspaper, if something comes up, you respond in a letter to the editor. If the president or something happens that brings up the nuclear threat, write an op-ed, or again, letter to the editor. So use opportunities in the news.
All right, thank you for that question. We'll move on to the next one. So the next one this one came from Aaron. It says, what makes you confident that this campaign, rather than some other effort, is worthwhile? I know, Denise, you have a good answer for this, but if other people want to jump in too, feel free.
I think I'm going to go with the sort of yes and. There are various, people take on what speaks to them the most. And what I personally like about Back from the Brink is that it is a singular ask, but it's a singular ask for a package of proposals that could provide both immediate and long-term reductions in the threat of nuclear war. So and what makes me feel confident about it is the success that we've seen. This is largely a grassroots effort. Almost all of the resolutions that have been passed have really been done by volunteers, people who live in those communities, and they build on each other. So when one city or municipality hears about the other cities who've done this, it gives them more courage to do something too. So what I personally like about this campaign is that we have a comprehensive package of policies that would provide, reduce dangers and eliminate them with our fifth policy point. And it's catching on, and it seems to be, we've had really quite good success so far. So that is my pitch for this awesome platform.
All right, did anyone else want to jump in, or should I move on?
I'll just, this is Peter, and I'll just add that we've been amazed that it's not only, organizers that are within our organizations who are doing this work, but we're getting news from some localities that, have just taken this on themselves. We didn't even know they were trying to get a resolution, and they've gotten one passed. So there's been a sort of a viral spread quality to it, which again speaks to the receptivity of the public at this point. And we're really hoping that this webinar will now inspire some of you to take this on, so there'll be another whole circle of folks who are doing some of the work. And you'll hear at the end, we're going to try to figure out a way to sort of continue this conversation with you, have a conference call in a couple of months to share further success stories, which we hope will inspire you to continue the work.
All right. So we're kind of running out of time already, but one quick question that we've had that came in was if we could put the slide back up of the map of all the registrants. Madison, I don't know if you would mind doing that, just so that people can see where all the registrants came from. And we've also had a lot of questions about whether the slides will be available after the webinar. Yes, they will be. We can make them available at www.preventnuclearwar.org. I'll make a post, and they should all be available there sometime in the near future.
As well as a recording, right?
Yes, and there will be a recording sent to everyone who can, rewatch this or share it with anybody that they want to share it with.
And Alex, is the recording a combination of the slides with the recording at the same time? I know in some cases the webinar recording has both the visual and the audio.
I believe it's both at the same time, yes.
Okay.
So another question we had, sorry, were you going to say something, Denise?
No, I was just going to say what the recording should be like essentially is a video. And we're hopefully that it could also become a tool if people want to organize locally, that they could, have a house party or have a meeting and play this this video of the webinar to help organize in your area.
All right. So the next question we have is from Renzo. He says, "Is there anything I could do in my community? I'm blind, so I don't really know what to do." Just to jump in first, and if anyone wants to add anything, I think, we all have organizations or networks or groups that we belong to, whether that's faith communities or whether that's, active groups or just school groups or any kind of organization that you interact with. And any organization can endorse Back from the Brink. So regardless of what where you might be coming from, there are plenty of organizations or people that you talk to on a day-to-day basis that you can bring the subject up with and that you can try to get to endorse. I don't know if anyone else wants to add to that.
Well, if you contact us, we can also look into our membership and try to see who's near you.
That's true. Yep.
Yeah, and absolutely. I mean, and when you do that, if you tell us where you're from, I mean, I know at UCS we have a directory of municipal officials around the country, and so we could give you guidance on sort of how to get started, how to start that conversation with a municipal official or maybe a staff member for a city councilor in your community or someone who works for the mayor. So we absolutely can sort of help you take those first steps of getting a conversation going with folks in your community.
All right. So I think I'll ask one more quick question, and then I'll pass back to Sean to close out. We have gotten a lot of questions about contacting Congress. So basically, how's the best way to contact Congress about this issue, if that's something that you want to
do? This is Gwen. So we have set up contacts with staff people for most of the congressional districts in Maryland, and we ask for appointments. And most of the time we get staff. Sometimes the staff are very well informed and trained about military and nuclear issues. And then we make follow-up appointments with them so they get to know us. And we have an ask. And mostly our ask has been the 5 parts of Back from the Brink. Some other asks may have to do with what's going on in other countries that are affecting some of the people in the group who are, upset about, or immigration. But we try to really focus on Back from the Brink and make that our major ask. And these staff people have gotten to know us.
And I'll throw in that if you're able to get organizations in your town or city to endorse Back from the Brink and municipalities to endorse it, you'll have an even more powerful visit with your congressperson, because you'll be able to show them that their own constituents support this and they care about their constituents, because that's who votes for them and keeps them paid.
Yeah, this is Sean. Just to sort of reinforce this really significant point, that this is a huge part of this whole initiative that we're trying. At the end of the day, this is about federal policy. The nuclear weapons policies are federal policy, and we're building a larger, broader, more powerful constituency in support of these policies. And so, when these members of Congress start hearing from a greater diversity of folks in their community, including their local elected officials with whom they work on a regular basis, we are going to influence their thinking. More of them are going to co-sponsor some of these bills that Denise mentioned before on first use and sole authority and et cetera. But again, getting these folks to take the step of endorsing Back from the Brink through a resolution or a statement or a letter is really key to influencing their thinking.
This is Sandra. Also, you can just pick up the phone and call the Washington, D.C. office of your representative or your senators and promote one of these bills, like the Resolution 302, which is all 5 of the Back to the Brink points. It's something you can do today or tomorrow, as well as starting to work on finding organizations and towns to endorse the resolution.
All right, so we're running out of time, so I will pass it back to Sean. I just want to say that we've gotten dozens of questions that we haven't been able to answer yet, but don't worry, we have email addresses for all of you. So if you've asked a question, we will email you to follow up, so you will get your question answered. And again, if you have any more questions, feel free to email info@preventnuclearwar.org, and we'll get back to you as quickly as we can. Go ahead, Sean.
Well, just thank you to our presenters and to everyone, Alex and Madison. This has been a great evening, and I've learned a lot, and really appreciate everyone taking time out of their evening to join us, and we really hope that we've inspired some of you. We've given you a sense of what others have done and some lessons learned, and have inspired you to think about what you might be able to do in your community. So we, as a next step, probably early next week, everyone who registered for the webinar will get a follow-up email. And in that, we'll talk about some next steps. And as Peter mentioned earlier, it will include an invitation to sort of join us or to opt into a conference call that we hope to schedule sometime in the next couple of months. We don't have a date yet, but we will soon. But really importantly, we really want to emphasize that we're here to help. And on the screen here, you see various ways in which you can be in touch with us, and most significantly, just the email address. I think Alex monitors that email address, and so if you're in a particular community and you're inspired and you want help and you want to get going here, we're going to help you do that. That's really what we're here to do. And so you'll see that we have a presence on social media, both on Twitter and Facebook. If you're there, we'd love for you to follow our accounts and like them and interact with our social media accounts and be part of this. So you look for an email from us. Stay in touch, and let's do some more exciting things together. And again, thank you so much, and have a good rest of your evening. Take care, all.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sean. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.